We're good? All right, good morning, everyone. Apologize for the late start. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Are we broadcasting?
This is recording.
Perfect, okay. Welcome to our March 3rd Reparations Committee meeting. We have a quorum. Tashik, do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
No, I want to sign up.
Okay, anyone from the audience? Perfect, seeing no names, we'll go ahead and continue. Before we do we'll do the approval of the minutes, then we'll do a quick introduction. Is there a motion to approve the January 13th minute meetings?
Move approval.
I second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Are there any questions, edits, comments? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor of passing the January 13th minute meetings, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Before we get into our discussion items, I just wanted to quickly introduce Ms. Audrey Thompson to the committee, as well as the members of the public that are here this morning. Audrey is our new interim director of Parks and Recs. And that appointment was made as of Monday. And then prior to that, Audrey has worked extensively with our seniors. She has advised in different capacities as we have moved through this process of awarding our first 16, and with the departure of Kimberly, our former deputy city manager. She has joined the committee as an additional staff person. So I just want to welcome Audrey to the committee as well as to the public and saying thank you very much for joining our efforts.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and you'll be giving an update shortly. All right, our first item is the update on the orientation for the first 16 beneficiaries. Yes. So I just wanted to tee this up a little bit. The last time we met, if you all remember, we drew the names of all the individuals. At the end of the meeting, we talked about a process of bringing everyone together to do an orientation just to explain the program as well as to better understand what the needs are of the first 16. Given the recent COVID protocols, it made better sense rather than trying to bring everyone together that our staff meet with the individuals one-on-one in their homes. So today we're going to get an update on that process, and I'll turn it over to Audrey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you all for allowing me to be here and to present. I do have one correction on the memo. We actually met with 9 beneficiaries already. We had a short visit and was able to call someone and say, hey, can we come now? And so we were able to add another. So my report will be on actually 9 beneficiaries. And if you look at table 1, it does, it has 9, it's the information for 9 beneficiaries. So I want to provide some information about those 9. The visits have been very, wonderful. They are so appreciative. I hear you, Mr. Simmons, all the time about how this committee has worked and how they are just so happy. Tashik and I have made it clear that we say congratulations, but this is a repair of harm. And so we're just happy to be able to do something at this point, and they have been really wonderful. So I'm also happy, in addition to COVID protocols, to do the home visits, because as Tashik and I have found, we are working with older adults, and we are literally able to go through every page of the documents and explain and have them ask questions that they might not ask if they were in a group of 16. And during that process, because I have worked with many organizations we have regarding even Rebuilding Together for repairs, I knew right up front that there would be individuals who would need far more work than $25,000. And we have already identified many individuals who will need more work than $25,000. So because of that, I worked with the Evanston Community Foundation to write a grant. They did receive that grant for $20,000 in order to increase the benefit to individuals specifically who are a part of this program. And so in that, I've also signed up new individuals for our Evanston benefit card, because any repair that can be made to their home that will not have to come out of the $25,000 will just allow them to have more of a benefit. So for the handyman, we have 3 additional Evanston benefit card applications, and we have completed 6 of the 9 have indicated that they would like to participate with Rebuilding Together. So we've also completed a Rebuilding Together application. So for those of you all who do not know, Rebuilding Together North Suburban Chicago is a organization that works in Suburban, Cook, and Lake counties. And I will be honest that when I got here, I've been here 11 years, I've only worked with them 9, because my mom always said if it's too good to be true, it usually is. Until I started working with them and saw how many tens of thousands of dollars they were able to spend on homes every year. And so because of that, I know that those contractors and volunteers are able to do things for free because they are volunteering their time, even though they're licensed and bonded. When it comes to a volunteer, you don't have to be licensed and bonded to make someone's yard look really nice. So their contractors would be able to work with CEPA and Rebuilding Together will be able to work all together to increase the benefit. So I've already completed 6 requests for handyman, and those requests include a toilet, a door, siding being replaced to the home, carbon monoxide detectors, smoke detectors. So all of those will be provided at no charge to the individual, simply because they qualify for the Evanston benefit card and the handyman. So just wanted to make sure that you all are aware of the additional benefits that we want to make sure that they all are aware of going into this process. Because many of them have a long list of things, even a daughter suite outside, so the daughter can stay outside rather than inside the house. So there are all kinds of requests. I did want to just bring to the attention of this committee that we are looking at a couple of individuals who were selected that it's possible that they may not be able to take advantage because they do not fall within the 4 areas, being able to get a loan and, so they're renters. And I want to bring to the attention of this committee the possibility of maybe using funds from another area if we know of any other place, because I've received requests about medications and helping with rent and also buying furniture. So, if we have other ways to ensure that that happens so that they're able to still be a part of this, I'd be happy to explore them so that we can make sure that they're getting something, because they were selected as one of the first 16.
And we're going to put that as an item for discussion on the back end. We just had this conversation 24 hours, and I thought it was important to bring it to the committee so that we get through the other items. I'm listing that as an item for discussion, and it'll come after Nick's presentation about the tax implement. Does that make sense? So you all have in your folders all of the information. In addition to going over CEPA's additional programs and Rebuilding Together, I also discussed with them, because the majority of them have selected home improvement. And so, I always say, hey, this is going to be an added benefit. It's going to increase the equity of your home. So
you know, and I am floored by how many people do not have advance directives. So that's a power of attorney for healthcare, property, a living will, and not even a last will and testament. And so we do work with the Center for Disability and Elder Law, who will provide these documents free of charge. And so I've had 4 to say that they are going to take advantage of those because they do not have advance directives. So just being able to add on, instead of just coming and saying, this is the program signed here, what kind of other benefits? And I said, I gotta get my promotion game up, especially since I had several to not even know about the Evanston benefit card. And so it's been really nice to be in homes and to let people know and sign them up right on the spot.
Just a question about the broad list of services that you have available to our senior community and making sure that you include that beyond just what applies to home improvements and housing related benefits, whatever they need. It's really provided a special opportunity to get in and serve our senior community in that way.
Right, so the Evanston benefit card is transportation. It's getting half off on the wheel tax, so it's all of those. So once I sign them up for the benefit card, in the packet is information about the subsidized transportation program, their wheel tax discount, all of those will be made available. And many of them didn't know about even getting half off of the wheel tax.
And then one more thing, I've noticed that the letter is pretty procedural based and just talks about a proper letter sort of restating the acknowledgement of the harm and the goals and benefits, the intentions of the initiative in a more formal way, kind of restating the injury, our past, and what our goals are in repair. If we could work on that, consider working on that together, and I think that was it.
Okay, yeah. Do you have a copy of the form that you're asking to sign? Because these elderly people have called me, and so what are we signing? Is this it here?
No. It's the intake form. So, and let me just make
Is it
sure.
this one?
No, it's the intake form for the housing. It's on the other side.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So it lists the option for purchasing a home, and then also how they would like a benefit to pay down their mortgage, or in a couple of different ways, by lump sum, or for also to pay the mortgage per month until the $25,000 is exhausted. It also talks about the home improvement, and we go over if the individual would like to manage on their own or have SEPA manage. And then we talk about the transfer. So as you can see, we've already had one individual to transfer the benefit. And that was to a son, which is really cool.
Who was already signed up, had an
Already signed
application in as a descendant, just to make that clear, yes.
And what is really unique about this program, and the more I read, the more I was just like, this is really cool, that they're able to select more than one option. So we've had individuals to say, I just want to get Chase off my back for about 12 months, and let's use the rest of it for repairs to my home. So it's been really nice that they're able to use it in several different ways.
Are there any additional questions before we move on?
I do have a question. What is the time frame looking like for them to take their next step to SEPA, and in the case that folks are using it to pay down their principal balance? Is that also being passed through SEPA?
Right, so within 5 days after we give the information to SEPA, then they are to contact the homeowner and then follow through with that procedure. Of course, it's going to be a lot quicker if they're just paying down a mortgage or setting that up to pay it down, or for a lump sum. The procedures are still pretty quick, within 5 days, but then the bidding process, getting the permits in place, all take time. But we have not had one person so far to say they want to manage the contract on their own. Some of them have already had nightmares when it's come to contractors. And so knowing that someone is going to be coming to their home every other week at a minimum to ensure that the timing and all of the work is being done as the work write-up and the contract states, they've just been like, that's the option that I want. And we go over it with them, and I am very clear that it is their choice, period. And so they've been happy about that, but once they hear how much they have to do to manage their own construction, nobody yet has had a son who's in the construction field or someone that they know to manage it, but they have stated several times that they would like to see the list of minority businesses. And so we do have that list, and we'll make it available to them so that they are able to select a minority contractor.
Okay, also, I don't know how many of them are also on Medicaid, but I was, one of the ones that I talked about were concerned about getting help at home. Wheelchairs, prescription assistance, a caregiver, transportation in the form of an Uber card. And I did not know how to answer them about how we could transfer these benefits to someone who's not a homeowner. My first concern was probably we should put them in the category of descendant, and that would probably be something that they could apply since they don't own a home. But I'm very concerned about when they call me now, what kinds of options do they have if they don't own a home?
So,
thank you. So I got to be not to go.
So Mr. Sutton, so those needs that you discussed, those are just needs that we can, sign them up. Medicaid, Yuzari is our person who, and she speaks Spanish, so both, anybody who calls, if you have someone, they can call our senior services hotline, and she'll sign them up for Medicaid. So I don't want you all to think that we have to use the benefit to pay for something that should already be paid for through the state or the federal government.
Right.
So there are so many other options, which is why we've brought in Rebuilding Together and Handyman, because if you have to get grab bars with your $25,000, why would you do that when that's not even an amount that comes out of their allotment per year when they're using the Handyman program? So that's something that we should just be automatically able to do.
And can I suggest that you have your staff person, can I suggest, so everyone can hear me, can I suggest that you have your staff person meet with Mr. Sutton, just if you're getting those calls, and I just said it, the director said that earlier, that we have those resources, so I just want to make sure that you know, and if it makes sense, at our next committee meeting, we can have her just provide a brief little update and pass it out, not only to the members of the committee, but also to the public, because you're correct. We talk about these things all the time, and it is, painful to the ears when you go into the seniors and they haven't heard them. So we want to make sure that we get that information out there.
But I do want to give you one more example so you kind of understand what we're looking at as far as the beneficiaries. So we have one beneficiary who lives in an apartment and receives HUD subsidy. Well, it's very difficult a lot of times to get a HUD subsidy,
Right.
and no one should give it up for a $25,000 budget. And so again, we need to think about that, because even if she were to purchase a home, she'd lose her subsidy, and because she only has Social Security, she would not be able to pay rent with $800 a month. So it's better for her to stay in her apartment and still receive the subsidy, because that is forever.
Right.
And so those are the things that, I'm blessed to be involved with this process. So, because when they're saying this, I can say the next thing and say, hey, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? So that's why I appreciate you all allowing me to be a part of the process, just given the historical knowledge of all the programs and services that are available to them.
Thank you. Thank you. As I had mentioned before, just to the committee as well as the folks, we're going to speak about those issues a little bit later under items for consideration. If there aren't any questions in terms of discussion item A, the update on the orientation of our first 16, then we'll move to the next. Excuse me.
I'll just say, yes, I'll just say what I'm hearing here is being very clearly expressed by Mr. Sutton, by Director Thompson, is that what we do next needs to be more flexible. It is what I'm hearing. It's because there are needs that folks have beyond the housing, and so I just want to center that and make sure that that's clearly heard.
And on top of that, I think we also shared that the first 16, as a reminder, was just based on the dollars that were available, that were in the budget. In addition to that, we made it clear that there will be other benefits to move forward as we get more money into our coffers. And I think the other thing that we also have stated in the past is we're going to learn lessons from the first 16. For the members of the public, there's still, what, 123 minus the 16, so I do the math in the head, to go under this first group. So there's definitely more to come.
Can I have something?
Please.
That, yes to council member, Reed, and everyone else on flexibility moving forward, but I think we should, at a future meeting, have a broader discussion about what's happening for reparations in the city regarding other efforts that can support what we're doing here. And some of the goals are going to be outside of the purview of the city of Evanston or outside of the guidelines of the resolution 126R19. And so I recommend that we, in the coming meetings, have a report from the Reparations Stakeholder Authority of Evanston, the interfaith community of Evanston, to learn more about their pretty extraordinary fundraising efforts and commitments to reparations, and we could be working together more so than we have been.
That's great. Absolutely. Please.
You know, and this may be something to explore at that tag at the end of the meeting. But, hearing you say, and I'm well aware, that there are, we have ancestors that are presently going without benefits outside of our program, but that could be benefiting them right now. And you know, I know it's an ask for manpower and time, etc., but if we might consider going through perhaps the list that we have past our 16, because it seems like number 20 should not have to wait to know that they qualify for the Evanston benefit card until they come up and we have that conversation with them. There are programs that we could let them know about and, you know, help them to sign up for, etc., particularly considering the age group and so forth we're dealing with. So, you know, just suggesting that we maybe tack that on at the end as a to-do. I know you probably need to make us aware of the manpower constraints and all that.
That may be a quick turn just by asking Tashik to whatever method that we use to communicate to them. And I think it's just a simple introductory letter that contains your contact information or whomever your staff member is, along with the resources that they have just bullet pointed and reminded. And if we have a way of, whether it's through your ombudsman or any other staff member, to respond to that as people get back to you, then...
So I think what I can do, because while we signed up 3 people for the benefit, for the Evanston benefit card, there were others who already had.
Right.
So they were like, hey, when is Sam going to come put my, so they already knew.
Right.
So I think this, first of all, and thanks for that, I can have an intern to take the information, at least the addresses, and line them up with who already has a benefit card and who's not just who has it, but who's using it. And then it may be an opportunity for us to introduce it to them or remind them of the benefit. So that's good. So this particular woman with the $800 income, You know, so then my questions have to be, well, why aren't you receiving Medicaid, extra help? You know, what other services? Because I'm not sure why she would have to pay for medication. You know, now there are medications that there are co-pays and others, and of course, we're still working to advocate for, you know, having other services, you know, for, you know, dental and hearing aids and all that kind of stuff. But I get what you're saying. So that's, I will make a note and we'll take care of that. That's not a problem. Thank
you, Claire. Moving on to our next item, B, staff's update regarding tax implications for reparations benefits. Nick?
Good morning, members of the Reparations Committee, members of the public, Nicholas Cummings, Corporation Council. I'm gonna stand over here because I don't have my back to everybody else. Before I go into the tax report, there's one thing to keep in mind, and I certainly understand the frustrations and the limitations that we have as a municipality, but the program, the housing program in particular, was designed the way it was because of, unfortunately, that's the way the law requires it to be. Cities and states don't have the same flexibility as the federal government has in terms of offering this kind of repair. So there has to be a direct correlation between the harm caused and the actual repair given in order for it to really be constitutional. I mean, I'm saying that simplistically, but there has to be that direct correlation. So being able to provide the $25,000 benefit for something else that doesn't relate to the historical discrimination would be effectively unconstitutional and threaten the viability of the program. With respect to the tax implications, so the law department hired a tax firm because of the many questions that continue to arise with respect to the tax implications. So we sought a second opinion from an expert, and I am still awaiting those 3 opinions. And so it is going to be 3 opinions. One is the tax implications surrounding the current program, if there are any. The second is any tax implications if we provided a direct cash benefit. And the last is any implications, tax or otherwise, to aid programs, entitlement programs, such as Social Security, Medicare, HUD, supplemental benefits, that sort of thing. So that request for an opinion was made about 11 days ago. So I'm still waiting for it. I asked for patience. Hopefully by the next Reparations Committee meeting, I will have those 3 opinions in writing. So we will have an opportunity for everyone to understand that we are trying to design programs that will not have tax liability on people who are receiving.
Thank you, Nick. First, Lisa Arbor, followed by Carlos.
Who is, what firm is providing them?
It's called Tax Law Offices, Inc. Jeff Anton Collins is the principal. He's a former IRS, and he's an attorney. They have offices in Illinois, Maryland, and South Carolina. They focus a lot on commercial as well, but they do also personal tax advice. And they were happy to sign up with the municipality and the work that we're doing, trying to do restorative justice. So they actually agreed to the municipal rate. So, and it is black-owned firm.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I was very interested that we have no housing plan in Evanston to help small landlords. And I had a very good friend back in the 80s, a long time, who worked for community development for HUD. And one of the programs they had in community development were restoration of homes, remodeling, putting siding up, and other repairs that was part of the HUD regs. And I could never understand why the city of Evanston hasn't given more attention to that program, because we always hear the argument about you should have been making these kinds of contributions to redlined people from the beginning. So why do we have to have a limitation, 1? And 2, what kind of people on the city are not looking for these kinds of available grants that are already available at HUD for your homes, but yet you can give them to small businesses, but you can't give them to small landlords?
So that's a complex question that might be better addressed by community development. But insofar as this program is concerned, the program is always designed for those landlords who are eligible and are, the building is also where they reside, for them to be able to utilize the benefit to address their building, if, you know, even if it's a multi-unit building and they're a landlord. Insofar as those HUD regulations and those buildings needing to be kept up with those HUD regulations, you know, it's a lot different for the city in terms of the correlation of harm, like I was talking about. You were talking about red line areas. We're trying to address, and it's still up to this committee if they offer a different program that specifically addresses that problem, but the harm has to be caused by the city. And so the evidence that Dino Robinson and her name is Jenny Thompson did, you know, if you read through that evidence, that is the evidence of the city's actual effects. Some of that redlining is private, whether it be through real estate agents, banks. You know, we already know there's historical discrimination in terms of home valuation. So when you get somebody to come and appraise the building, and it's a black-owned building, and they know it appraises less than if it's somebody that they think is owned by a white person, but that's not the city. So we can only provide repair for the harm caused by the city, unfortunately. The federal government, specifically the Supreme Court of the United States, has said that states and cities are not able to do that, especially when it comes based on race. It's left to the federal government.
All right. No other questions? Seeing none, Nick, thank you very much for your update.
Just, I mean, we're gonna, the beneficiaries in this program will have this tax advice, obviously, before they get to receive the benefit.
It's my hope that I will have the opinion before SEPA starts paying out. However, the program, I mean, part of the criticism about how the program was designed is in terms of give this third party direction in terms of payment, right? So we're paying directly to a mortgage company, we're paying directly to a contractor. And that's so specifically so that that cash is not seen as income to the recipient. Now, the question was raised, and this is why we're getting that opinion, is they're still receiving the benefit of the value of that service at the end of the day. They're receiving the benefit of that mortgage payment at the end of the day. And so we want to make sure that that still doesn't bring a tax implication to someone who, you know, especially with our current group of ancestors, might be on a limited income or something like that, and all of a sudden now their income increases $25,000, takes them to another tax bracket. So I'm hopeful that I have that opinion and I can follow up with Mr. Collins this week, before the end of the week, to ensure that we have that opinion soon. But you know, I'm also not trying to rush his expertise. Like I'd rather have it well researched and have a solid opinion so we can tell people you should not be affected by taxes.
Thank you for your question, Nick. Thank you again for the report. And we'll invite you back next month. Hopefully we'll have some additional direction. Thank you for taking that on. All right, doing that on time. Have we skipped over? Did we accept and place this on file?
No, we
That's
haven't.
what I did. Can we please go back? We just need a motion
I move
to,
that we place item A, update on orientation 101, first 16 reparations beneficiaries on file.
Second?
it's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Good. Item signed. Thank you. Next item for discussion, we have a staff update, but we did that. So for number 5, in terms of items for consideration, I wanted to bring back, 2 items that will allow us to manage our time, and then we still have the communication. So Audrey, what I'm going to suggest is that we take item 6 and then come back to items for consideration so that we don't have to interrupt that conversation. Fair enough?
Yes.
Everybody good with that? All right, so you want to I know we have two members join us. We'll just quickly summarize the Rebuilding Together grant. And then we have an update from the sheik regarding the financial report. And then we'll place those on file and then continue our items for discussion. And the two items are going to be, just for everyone's thought, we have three ancestors that are not requesting the three things that we have discussed in the program on, so we have to give some thought to that.
And that's including the fourth, the transfer of benefit? Is that including?
So right now, we know of two.
We know, right?
We know of two.
So it's, as we said before, this is like our test group for the remaining 100 and some odd. So we just want to give some thought to that with the understanding that we're waiting to hear the tax implication. And then the other piece, Committee Member Simmons had mentioned that there are three banks that we're going to be talking about as well. She has mentioned that our faith community is raising funds and the possibility of working closely with them. So I think what the discussion item will be is to start to brainstorm on what other things are you all hearing from the community, what other things are you starting to think about, only because, and this is for the public, and we'll get back to the agenda, is everything that we do, there's a risk involved in terms of we're waiting for somebody to see. So I think the sooner that we can get those thoughts and information to our corporation council to start vetting, the more productive our conversation will be. Does that make sense? Okay. Let me jump into item 6A. We'll take item B and then we'll go into our discussion within the time that we have. Thank you.
So very quickly, and I had to mention some of this in my report because it was relevant. So a couple of months ago, I worked with Rebuilding Together to write the Innovations Grant for Evanston Community Foundation. So the max that a person...
Director Thompson, can you do me a favor? So
Sure.
Myself, Simmons have worked with them before.
I'll give a whole...
And we haven't for the two, okay.
So I worked with Rebuilding Together to help them write a grant, an innovation grant for Evanston Community Foundation. The max that they could receive was $20,000. I worked with Rebuilding Together for about 9 years, and I didn't mention this, but each year I increased the number of applications to now we're at about 20 applications a year. And normally they take about 15 to 16 of them. They spend tens of thousands of dollars in Evanston to complete home repairs, from a porch, roof, windows, garage repairs, painting, you name it. And so a large part of it with Rebuilding Together North Suburban Chicago, it's a free service to anyone who qualifies. So I want to make sure that you all know that it's not just for older adults. And I think because when I come, it's like older adults. It's anyone who qualifies. But for Rebuilding Together, with this round, they are working with, for that $20,000, to increase the benefit for those 16 who would have items that Rebuilding Together could repair. So this just adds to their benefit, because if they can have someone paint, then the cost is a lot different than if you add that to the work write-up under a contract. So they're going to be, I filled out the applications. So really, Tashika and I asked them for their wish list. So for all of those who have selected home improvement, we know everything now that they want complete in their home. Now, will that change once a real contractor, Tashika and I are not contractors, but once SEPA goes to the home, I'm sure they will, or once Rebuilding Together is a part of that. And so we are introducing, because Rebuilding Together and SEPA have worked together in the past, just reintroducing to make sure that SEPA understands that Rebuilding Together has received a grant and that they will be able to have more of a benefit based on the $20,000 that was received. I think that's it. Just for your purposes, Rebuilding Together is North Suburban Chicago, but they also do work in Lake County.
Can you add, you mentioned that, I don't see it in here, or maybe it is.
That's it, you had your hand on it.
No, I was gonna say, the directory of, black contractors and.
Oh, no, that's not in there. That's not.
Can you make sure that everyone that you touch has access to that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I'm also concerned about the tax implications as he mentioned. Many of the people that I've talked to also have the senior freeze. So how, when they're doing their income tax, I guess it would be a violation of the law if they did not admit that they had been the recipient. But if they are the recipient, they lose the senior freeze in additional income. It'll make their income appear more than $75,000 a year. And I was concerned about how we're going to handle that a situation with rebuilding, where would they have to add these improvements as a tax benefit or not?
So they haven't in the past. So even with rebuilding together, I mean, I've seen rebuilding together spend $40,000 on a home. And they did not. I mean, that had no tax implication. I'm not an attorney, so I think that we have to wait for what comes. But I'm just crossing my fingers that that could be an issue. I will tell you that based on what we're seeing already, many of them, even with the additional $25,000, would not make that amount of money.
So can you check with either Mitzi or Community Development? So to Carlos's point, the permitting fees is what triggers the value, and I believe that's communicated to the county. I could be incorrect. But I think the senior freeze is determined by their age, and the specific question to our staff is, does somebody who is on the senior freeze, and that's what 66, 65, when they're able to apply, if they do any improvements to their house, does that increase the value? I personally haven't heard of any situation where that's happening, but I think that's something that could be answered by our next meeting. So thank you for raising that, Mr. Sutton.
And I also want us to know that what we have heard, they're not putting, other than the lady who said, can you make my daughter a room out back? Other than that, but she also has $25,000 worth of work inside the home. So it's work for upkeep. So it's not an additional benefit to the home. Like, they're not putting a gazebo on the back. This is, I have not been able to get my roof. I have a leaky roof that has destroyed my bathroom. So these are the repairs that we're talking about. And it just digs deeper into, and I'm glad you gave us the recommendation to write a letter, because we say congratulations, but congratulations is really when you win a prize. This is not a prize. This is more of, we have harmed you, and what are we going to do to repair that? This is a start, nothing near what we should do, but this is just a start. So we got to get away from congratulations. It's the best word we have right now, but I got to figure out another word than congratulations.
All good points. Are there any other questions or comments on item A? If not, we'll move to the item B, the financial donation report.
So as of March, the city received $69,103 in donations to the Reparations Fund.
Okay. What was that dollar amount again?
$69,103. We had some large donations in December.
Okay. Thank you for that. Are there any questions or comments?
What was the single largest contribution?
It's all lumped together, but I saw like $15,000 in the month of December.
Okay. I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions or comments, can we please have a motion to place on file the donations report?
I move that we put on file item B, the donations report.
Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor of putting donations file on record, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. and forth. So now we're going to circle back to members committee. We have approximately 30 minutes left of meeting time. We want to go back to item A for consideration. We'll call this brainstorming or ideation. We have three buckets, I guess, for lack of better words, in terms of funding opportunities. So one, we're all familiar with the public fund, and I'm just framing the conversation. Public fund, by ordinance, we have up to 10 million.
10 million.
10 million, tell me, right, I'm used to saying public fund. Thank you. We have 10 million, of which we have budgeted $400,000. This is going to be an ongoing conversation, but we're just capturing thoughts. In addition to that, we have the RSA fund, or we should say the money that's it.
I would be careful that we don't govern the RSA.
We're not trying to govern, I'm just saying we're just throwing out ideas and concepts. Like if in a second, we're going to be, you said that you wanted them to work together. So it may be, how do we work together? Maybe I'll rephrase that. And then the third fund that we have is the 69,400 that's in private donations. So I just want to be clear to everybody in the public, clear to the committee. You know, we've had thoughts, conversations about the first repair. Now we're just opening up a conversation to these other areas, and then that way we can pass this information along to Nick so we can start to vet the ideas. Does that make sense? And if we're just throwing out just little nuggets, things that you've heard in the community
I think that
to consider, so that when they come up, we've already started an opinion on them, just to make use of the last 30.
I was just going to say that I didn't see the 69 as an additional fund, but to be added to the reparations fund. So not that it's a different pot. Can you clarify that?
Well, I think that's just an opinion that we can put down. That's why we're having.
No, I mean, I don't think it's an opinion. I think it's a matter of fact. Is it going into the reparations fund, or is there a separate fund? There's one fund for reparations.
Okay.
The city of Evanston.
Can I ask a question about the 10 million though? So the 10 million is governed by the 4 categories that we have now. Is that correct?
No.
No.
The 4 options that people have. So we can use that 10 million for any type of reparations that this committee?
No, the 10 million is governed by Resolution 126R19, which states housing, economic development, and educational initiatives.
Okay.
And this housing benefit is just the first of others to come.
Go ahead, Tricia, because I got a question about this.
So in relation to the donations, the 69,000 is in the reparations fund, but there's no direction has been given to this committee as to what to do with that.
So I guess my question is, how did we decide that we would do anything other than what we had already passed, the resolution? Like, when did we decide that that would be an additional fund to do something different with? So
There's been no decision.
I don't understand how it could be a decision. I think that's what I'm saying. How could it be a decision that it's an additional fund? Is that something we have the right to do? If it's going into the reparations fund, and the reparations fund is governed by a resolution, then how do we separate out the contributions to that fund?
I don't think that's what we're doing. I think you're absolutely correct. It is governed by the resolution. But specifically, what specific items you want to use that donations for in those categories, it's up to you guys. We're just waiting for direction on what to do with the fund.
I think the way, I'm sorry to interrupt, I think where what Alderman Simmons is saying is just the way that you broke these things out, you broke it out in 3 categories as if it's a separate fund and as if it's not part of the 10 million, I think is what you're saying, because you have it in a separate 3rd category there.
The 400,000 is part of the 10 million. The 69,000 is part of the 400,000, likely, right, or more, or whatever.
Oh yeah, it's like
It's going over the 400. That's what I think.
But I have a question.
Okay.
So the 10 million was to come from the taxes from the cannabis thing. So
That is
in addition, we want to be careful about saying that the 69 some thousand is part of that 10 million because so now we have 10 million, 69, whatever.
Right.
Now, we don't want to confuse it that now
Right.
the once they reach whatever, less, that the reparations fund is not entitled to that additional 69.
Well,
It's written that way. If the
I don't-
I'm sorry, if, let's all just again get to a space of putting ideas out there. We're not making decisions or accusations. We're having a conversation about something that we've never discussed before. And we're doing it in a public setting, so if it's possible, I just want to be able to recognize, because I'm asked the chief to take notes, and that way we're keeping track of the discussion. Fair enough?
That's wrong.
Thank you. All right, Claire, were you finished?
Yes.
Thank
Yeah.
you. So, Councilmember Burns and then Councilmember Lee.
You go to Councilman Reed.
Okay.
Yeah, what I was going to say is I'm not quite sure that the resolution said that there's $10 million. I don't think it specified that it only can come from cannabis, because if we're relying on the cannabis tax dollars, we'll be waiting around for quite a long time before we reach that 10 million mark. And so, it's going to be a multitude of things that comprise that. It's going to have to be a multitude of things that comprise the 10 million. Chair, I'll let you.
So, in making the introduction in 2019, it was the intentions of, and the resolution should also support, that we have the commitment of the first $10 million of cannabis sales tax. So above and beyond that, and so I think I've always been clear in stating that this work is a start, it alone is insufficient, that we opened up and made a fund available and tax deductible for the purpose of getting additional funds. So I don't think we should ever start to discuss that the private contributions could make up the $10 million. The $10 million is a minimum coming from the cannabis sales tax. More funding should allow us to deliver more benefits to more Black residents in town. And so I think the confusion was, I wanted to clear up at least that we are acknowledging that we have one reparations fund at the city of Evanston that includes private and public contributions as well as cannabis sales tax. And it should grow to be $100 million or $500 million, but, so we're not separating that. And then the additional work that is so appropriately happening in the city through the faith community and the RSAE, I think it would be, I don't think this is the right setting or even the right time to have a discussion about what we plan to do with those dollars. So, because it's not for us to govern. So I think to even bring that in, the hope is that always that they will see the need, that they will pick up where we don't have a purview to deliver benefit, where they can serve in health and all these other areas, education and culture and so on, that those funds outside of the city fund can pick up on reparative initiatives outside of the city purview.
Perfect. So let me respond to what you were saying. A moment ago when we were giving the report, you said that we should work together.
They have to be here for us to work together
So
though.
this would have been an opportunity to share if you had any ideas. We just said we're throwing out ideas. I don't want to make it feel like we're putting restrictions, but I hear you. And so if the thought is setting up a joint meeting, then that could be a thought. We will calendar that for the future. Fair. Any other?
I just want to clarify a misstatement that I made, which is that, of course, Alderman Russo the resolution that was passed is just about the 3%. And so I do think on our next agenda, if we could have an actual on the agenda discussion about alternative sources of revenue to supplement, and really having a discussion about how much money do we need? Is it 100 million? Is it 300 million? Let's start figuring that out, because if we do the math, with just 140 140 some odd folks who applied now, that's the $10 million, if I'm not mistaken, if each of them took their,
I think it's closer to 3 points.
well, or maybe it's the 400 people who have applied, whatever it is. I think it's the 400 people who applied. If that was all we're taking, we've had discussions about potentially opening up a new application, so that means that there's going to be more people who apply. So we're talking about more than 10 million. So we should start to just figure out how much money are we talking about overall, so we can start hitting that goal.
Got it.
And so I think that so we have our framework on what we can even discuss, housing, economic development, education initiatives, and then at some point, you know, I would love for us, and I was gonna wait to go here, for us to look at expanding out that commitment. So now, you know, I framed it in 10 years and $10 million very conservatively, but we don't know what the dollars are that are coming in, because we only have one dispensary. More dispensaries are coming. So a look at getting to that number and expanding it beyond the $10 million, beyond the 10 years, and growing the fund in that way, and then having a more organized campaign, because these funds have been coming in just organically from folks seeing the effort and wanting to contribute. But I think when we have a more coherent sort of ask and framework of what our goals are, that the funds and contributions will come in even more so.
Got it.
Councilmember,
Please.
This-
Claire, the
And this might,
Director
because
Thompson.
I might be, because I'm about to throw over to you, I hope
Mhm.
it's appropriate. I think during this time, and we're talking about, we're wondering what needs that we've met, and now we have this housing one. I would just make a request to hear now more details from Ms. Thompson about what the people that could not make use of the program, the program within the parameters that we've set up, to hear about that. And then I'm just wondering if, I think, and I'm sorry, as a lawyer, maybe I should know, but maybe it's also my legal. Like, if some of the things that, I hear what Attorney Cummins is saying about how the repair has to be directly related to the harm. But I wonder, and this would be legal research, I'm just musing, if it's too attenuated a harm to say, for example, someone who needed, say you needed some medication. There's so many studies have been released about how the different harms of discrimination and poor housing, etc., is a tax on your health and so forth. Is that too attenuated if this is a great need that people have? And I think there would probably have to be some legal research on that, because I know that some of these things have been brought before, but a lot of the points we bring up may be novel. So
Carlos, I know, so
I don't comment on her point directly.
Sure, and then after that, Carlos.
Yes, and on that point directly, I think one, we have to, I think there's a bit of, in my eyes, a bit of confusion here, in that the repair has to, yes, the repair that the city offers to people has to be related to harm that the city caused. And there has to be a clear line between how the city of Evanston caused that harm and how it relates to this individual and why we would be providing repair for that person. So the medication thing, here it's a harm, but I don't know how we could prove that the city caused that harm. But where I do think the confusion comes in is that once we determine that the city has harmed the person, the repair, you know, if we choose to give someone $25,000 cash or whatever it is, I think where the confusion comes in is we think because the harm was housing, that the repair has to be housing, that the repair has to be $25,000 for housing when it could just be $25,000, and you choose how.
So, although, and I do know this portion, although you could say you're doing that $25,000 because of the housing repair, you can't, you know, it would not be that direct causality law is legally, that's all right. But if you were to give somebody like a car or something for it, that would quite likely violate things.
Well,
because that's not, I mean, that's just, it's not my it's not that I don't agree that, but some of this case law has been fleshed out already. So there has to be the link, you have to show the link. I'm sure there are many things that have been tested already, and I don't know the expanse of that.
Sure.
And that's why I would be interested to know from Attorney Cummings, and I suspect that more legal research would have to be done of know what doors are closed, but also to know what needs, that could we build the case for some needs that exist. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
I want to share, go around. So we have Jeff Thompson and Carlos, and then we'll come back.
And pardon me, Peter, I'm sorry, I know the public comment was before I arrived, but I just have two quick questions. Is it possible I could pose those questions?
Okay. Can we quickly
Sure.
take these two, and then I'll come back to you,
Sure.
Councilman?
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Thompson, and then Mr.
So I think we were adding the discussion based on some of the information that we received already from beneficiaries. So my question was, so we've got $10 million, the first 400, we've already said how we're going to use that based on the 4 options that we're asking individuals to sign off on. So my question was more of, are we bound by those same 4 options for the 69,000? And when we're talking about someone who says, I have somewhere to live, but I don't have decent furniture. Can you buy me furniture? Which was one of the requests. Is that something that is an option? But I do understand it gets to, well, can you buy me a car? And I understand, but how, which may be a question for our legal counsel, but that's why I wanted us to have some of this discussion, because we're talking about furniture.
It's not an option right now,
Okay.
based on the guidelines that we have. And so another thing that we might want to do is go back, I'm sorry, it wasn't my turn?
No, I just
I'm
want to
sorry.
be, it's an open discussion, Mr. Sutton.
Right, and I want to
Yes.
just say this is an open discussion, and I think we need to be talking about these things. First, let's get one thing perfectly clear, that the reparation program is not exclusively for homes, okay?
Right.
This is just a priority for the first. Secondly, systematic racism still exists. And there's no way that we could come up with a way to, that we see now what's going on with CRT, we see what's going on with voting. Evanston is not exempt from these kinds of systematic racism that are affecting us in this community. So we have an opportunity, one, to take money that is coming in from a new source, selling marijuana, to set aside a certain percentage. More importantly, Robin knows with her discussion with Cobra and with House Resolution number 40, there are many more continuing programs that we need to discuss and implement here in Evanston. One, the things about gentrification. Two, about what harm has not been able to address when we talk about simple things as getting a school, as we talk about simple things. Reparation can't solve everybody's problem. But what reparations can do, can bring to the table, and I appreciate that, a discussion, one, of what it is that will resolve, if not only resolve, will be some kinds of solutions to the harm that you've caused. So this housing program is just the first step. I don't know how much money's coming in from the cannabis sale, but when I see $3 billion for the state of Illinois, and there are only like 200 distributors in the entire state, it's hard for me to believe that there won't be enough money for us to collect this 10 million. But again, I don't think that should be the end of it. I think that should only be the beginning, and that there should be some discussion of what we can do to make something more permanent and more consistently make it affordable for people to live in this community, especially people of color, that we're now coming access to. The high prices of home, the rate of gentrification. Now, reparations can't solve all the harms, but we can at least bring them for a discussion to see, as we, especially intelligent people like lawyers and realtors, to address the harm not only in Evanston, but to set the mold for the entire community of race relations in this country.
Thank you for your comments. Councilmember Reed, followed by Committee Member Simmons. I also have Indona over there, and then Councilmember Bell.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to note that looking at reparations in the past, it hasn't, whether it's, America for the Japanese internment camps, Germany for the Holocaust, reparations all over the world, it wasn't directly tied to, they offered repair, and the folks were able to do with that repair what they chose to do with it. And so I just want to keep us grounded in that. I do also want to say, to your point earlier, Councilmember Ruth Simmons, is you were right about the resolution in that it locks in that the first 10 million from cannabis, but because it only discusses the first 10 million from cannabis, it actually doesn't lock in the 69,000 to that same repair, because it just locks in the 3% from the cannabis tax to that repair. So the 69,000, as you correctly said, which is separate from this 10 million, could be used in other ways because it's not yet defined anywhere how it could or could not be used. And then lastly, with the cannabis tax as it stands, we know that we're not receiving $1 million a year. We know that we're not receiving $500,000 a year. We know we're receiving less than that. So at the current rate, from what someone could reasonably estimate that we're receiving in cannabis tax revenue annually, it would take about 50 years for us to reach the $10 million if we kept at this pace. Of course, we know that we're going to add another dispensary or two, but even if we added another dispensary and our sales tax revenue from cannabis doubled, it would still take 25 years to reach the $10 million mark. So we are going to have to really figure, and if we, even if we tripled it, we could only have 3 dispensaries. Who knows if we'll ever reach 3 dispensaries, but even if that, and then at some point, the tax return starts diminishing because you have a saturation of it's not going to keep increasing at the same rate. So it's going to take more than 10 years to reach the $10 million mark using cannabis tax dollars. So we have to be realistic about that. So I'll put that in there as well.
Thank you.
So I don't know how because we aren't getting tax reports, so I don't know how we're measuring that or estimating that. And I was under the impression that we can't get a tax report on revenues received because there's only the 1 dispensary. So I think that's maybe not the safest sort of projection, just based on too many unknowns and more dispensaries coming. But the point that I really wanted to make was that we didn't just start this work. So maybe there's some new engagement right now today, even on this committee, but the work that we did in 2019 with the community, Mr. Sutton was there, Bobby was there, informed the resolution. So the feedback that the community gave, the Black community, the stakeholders that were at Gibbs Morrison and at the Parasol Room, said that they wanted housing grants and business grants and other types of support and technical assistance and a long list of, Shorefront having its own place, health access and so on. So instead of restarting that whole process of communication, I was trying to find it to see if you could, I couldn't find it. If you could maybe share that with the whole committee, there is a long list of prescribed remedies that the Black community wanted to see in 2019. So even if we just start with that list as a conversation starter and we had, Gabby was the intern at the time that separated what's housing, what's economic development, what might be Northwestern and so on. If we even start looking at that and then having a discussion based on the work that so many did in 2019. We didn't just enter the reparations discussion. So if we could maybe share that with the committee, I think that would be a great place to start. And for us to see what fits within Resolution 126R19, keep having the discussion. The RSAE is watching, the faith community is watching. They're probably present here today in the audience, and they can see what's outside of our purview and what they might be able to do to complement the work, as well as the other institutions in town. And so we're working really hard without others being accountable to the conditions in the Black community. Healthcare system, the district, I understand the Fifth Ward School is moving forward, that's a win. But I just don't want us to reinvent these wheels when a lot of this framework was outlined in 2019.
Thank you for your comment. We have Indona, Councilmember Reed, and I see your hand back there. You know, we have about 10 more minutes just to wrap up this conversation.
Okay, I'll be really quick. So I just have 3 questions. The first one, so for someone who is going to get $25,000 and their home repairs do not reach the full $25,000, what's done with the remaining amount?
Okay,
My
that's the
first question.
one.
Second question is, even though the harm might not have been someone losing their vehicle, appreciation of a home over time could create wealth. So even though, you know, it might not make sense to say, okay, well, I don't want a home, but I want a car instead, if they would have had the home back when the harm took place, they would have been able to take advantage of the equity in their home to purchase a vehicle. So maybe we can look at it in that way, you know, rather than just saying, you know, a car doesn't make sense because a car wasn't taken. But that appreciated value was taken away, it was stolen because of the harm that was caused. And then third, what was the third one? Jesus Christ. Oh my God.
We can come back to you.
Oh, the third one. Because there was $10 million promised based on the taxes received from the recreational marijuana, is that going to be adjusted over time due to CPI, which is Consumer Price Index? Because you know that $10 million today is going to be, it's not going to be worth $10 million 10 years from now. So each year as, you know, the CPI fluctuates, the value of the money is going to change as well. So are they going to adjust the amount of money that the city has promised to us based on CPI over time?
I captured the questions. We can't answer them right now, but
No worries.
I have Councilmember Burns, and then Dino, and then I'll come back here.
The question of whether or not we can or cannot do as a municipality direct cash payments, I think is one of the most important, fundamental questions, legal questions that we need to answer. And so, I don't know if Council Cummings is still here, but we've had other law firms present to committees and council before. I just want to make sure when they come back that the law firm is here to answer questions. Because what I found is sometimes there's things we're uncomfortable with that isn't necessarily illegal. And I think I just want to get real firm on what is legal and what is illegal and make my own interpretations and ask my own questions. So that's one. And then two, just to, I'm just curious if we have ideas. We've talked about a lot of things, but I think the primary question that Audrey had, and I apologize for being late, but there's 3 or 4 people who we don't. Two, okay.
Two right now.
And so we still don't have you don't have direction from us yet. So I just wanted to recenter that question and see if we have any ideas. We've touched on it, but I think.
And we said part of that has to do with, you know, Nick's response.
A lot of it is research.
Well, and then the other piece is, we have outside organizations that are still not at the table, right?
Okay.
So
that's the idea.
even though it may not, I can't speak to them.
It's out, we can't do it.
Yeah,
You know, it's a number of the rules.
I'm more so saying, what do we go back and say to them, and then does somebody take their place behind them that wants, you know, the housing repair or one of the, you know, options?
And so I would just like to, of course, go on record and saying, you know, if there are individuals, then, like, there are still maybe grants or something that we may be able to do to help people who just need furniture.
Right.
I don't know that we tie it or can tie it to what we're doing here as a committee, but it doesn't take away the fact that someone needs that type of, you know, and I think I'm uncomfortable because they were selected, and what's coming from that is more of kind of like, oh shucks, I was selected, but I can't take, you know, part of anything related. And so, I do understand that the policy, but in addition to that, anything outside of
Because I think the question is, do they reapply? Because obviously we have to be careful, even if we find another grant, that's not reparations, right? That
No,
was what we firmly said in the beginning, that it wouldn't disqualify them from receiving other benefits. And so I think that's the question, do they have to reapply? Because they replied and were awarded, are eligible to receive it at this point, do they get immediately in front of the line for the next program, or just how that works?
Well, currently we don't have a next program.
Don't have what?
We don't have a next program.
I know.
So that's why we're
Yeah.
just having open conversations about these things. It's all in discussion, not set in
Yeah, yeah.
policy. Dino, you wanted to say something?
Thank you, everyone, for this time. I'm sorry I missed public comment earlier this morning. I just want to make a few statements, very brief. I want to thank, or just make sure everybody knows, especially in the audience, that the report that Mr. Cummings had alluded to, that myself and Jenny Thompson worked on, that won a national award from the National Council of Public History. So that comes with a certificate, and we have to present at their conference coming up in April about that report. I think, I have to paraphrase it, but they said this was a timely, well-done report that included partnerships with the city of Evanston and local historians to bring to light movement and social change. So, thank you for this work. But at the same time, we need to add more to that report. That's why it still is labeled as a draft. And I welcome any type of comments. I was just hearing the conversation today, what else is needed in that report to help flesh it out more, to demonstrate harm caused directly by the city of Evanston, to make that report more robust so that it can address more issues that the residents can see. Another thing that we did through Shorefront, we spoke with the city clerk probably about 6 months ago. There's a plan to digitize city records. There's a nice closet in the city clerk's office with bound books and microfilm reels. Shorefront was able to acquire 37 of those reels, and we already digitized them to be searchable PDFs. So this will help in that cause as well. The city of Evanston has that copy, Shorefront has that copy, and the Evanston History Center has that copy as well. We plan on distributing to the Evanston Public Library as well. So I think this is an important part. Some of it's not going to be searchable because they're handwritten minutes, but some of the terms we're coming up with to look for specific ordinances or causes that the city caused harm to the city of Evanston. We're looking for those things. But these are 37 microfilms covering over 150 years of history in Evanston. It's a lot. But we have a small team working on that. Also, in response to switching hats here from Shorefront, well, actually one more thing for Shorefront. We would love to start interviewing recipients of these grants, of these repair, I'm trying to find the right word, that we can start working, we can incorporate in the historical collective with this work. So if any residents that you come across that are willing to share their story, we would love to interview them about their experience and their family history. Switching a little hat here to the RSAE. I am a sitting member of the RSAE. We welcome any communication and synergy that can happen with the city of Evanston to our work on a common cause to help restore and repair in this community.
And can you
Yes.
just provide, just for committee members and anybody else, a quick definition of who the RSAE is? And then are there opportunities for public meeting, or how would people get that information
Sure.
to you? Thank you.
So the RSAE is a representation of board leadership from representatives from the Black community, mostly from Black organizations, historically Black organizations. We're in the beginning stages of internal training, setting up the organization. We're still waiting for our nonprofit status letter to come in play, but our goal is to continue the work of identifying the needs of the harmed community with public forums. So we identify a separate, independently governed pool of money that the community can lead and determine how that repair comes to fruition. Of course, with keeping in mind some of the legal ramifications, so it has the best benefit to the community in a non-destructive way. So that's where we are right now, but we are hoping, really hoping to have some type of public forum before the end of 2022.
And is there a fund set up, and if so, can people donate, and how would they donate?
Yes, there is a fund that has been set up with a partnership with the Evanston Community Foundation. The Evanston Community Foundation, with multiple discussions with them, they waived all fees, and all they're doing is holding the money. The Evanston Community Foundation has no jurisdiction of how that money is used. That is determined by the harm community and the RSAE board. We do have money in there right now. People are donating. You can write a check directly to Evanston Community Foundation. Within the memo, put the RSAE fund, the reparations fund. So that money is growing as well. Answer that question?
Yeah.
Yep, okay, great. And then last, as just a public citizen here, there's multiple discussions about the 10 million in 10 years. I just want to, remind the audience, we have 3 aldermen sitting here on this committee, and you have the jurisdiction, I believe, that you can extend that 10 years to beyond 10 years and extend the monies and how that cannabis recreational tax money can be used. So I would really encourage this committee to look beyond just 10 million and see where the possibilities can go moving forward. I think that's extremely important to keep that in mind. We're not limited to that. We have a lot more we can do with that. And the list of harms that former Alderman Simmons had mentioned, that does exist on the city's website. I think it's in the Equities Commission webpage. So those things have been there, and that list is there as long. And that's how the resolution came about, those 3 categories. And I encourage residents to look at those again and see how we can participate in making movement to other things that are on the 3 components with economic development and educational initiatives. So I think there are groups that were working on things like that, and I encourage you to keep working on that because it's a lot of hard work and we just have to roll up our sleeves to do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much, and I just want to thank all the members of the public. Every time you come out, we appreciate your time, particularly in the morning. It was so hard just with so many meetings for our staff, everybody present here to find a time. And many of your faces are very consistent in your presence here, so thank you very much as well as contributions to the committee members. I want to thank you all very much for your presence. We got a lot of good notes and look forward to following up with you all at our next meeting. This meeting, seeing no other information in front of us. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move adjournment.
Second.
Been properly moved and second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.